speak to Frank Luntz, who's a pollster and communications strategist. Frank, it's good to see you again. Did this polling, and there was a lot to go at in the New York Times Siena poll this weekend, did it echo what you're seeing?
Echoed the focus groups, it echoed the numbers that we've been getting for the last few months. But I got to be candid with you, it was even more so. And what I don't understand is that Donald Trump is going through these court cases one after another. He's appearing before judges and he's having to declare not guilty. And yet he is now beating Joe Biden. Arguably, Trump has never been this weak. And Joe Biden has benefited from an economy that seems to be getting back on its feet. But his numbers are getting worse and worse. And there's only one conclusion to this, is that Joe Biden is too old to win the election 1 year from now, and that the public has decided that it is not just voting on Joe Biden as he is now, or that as he will be a year from now, but they're voting based on how he will be when he's 86 years old at the end of the next term, and that's too old for too many Americans.
So they won't vote for the 81-year-old, but they would vote for the 78-year-old?
Well, that's, and I hear it in your voice. I can't see you, but I hear it. And yeah, it does sound quite impossible. But the public is, let's get to the bottom of this. Whichever party jettisons their front runner and chooses somebody from a generation much closer to ours, or even younger than us, is the party that's going to win the next election. I don't know which party that'll be, but the public is saying that based on what they see and what they hear from the President of the United States, they are saying that he's too old to serve another 4 years.
Here's the thing that I don't understand from this polling that I was looking at over the weekend. How is Joe Biden only leading Donald Trump by 3 points, only 3 points, when it comes to who is the better custodian of the democracy? When you have a candidate who most people outside the country would consider to openly show contempt towards the democratic process. I mean, this is a man who stirred a riot at the Capitol, according to most objective opinion, and yet he's only trailing Joe Biden by 3%. Why?
Well, one of the things that is not being reported, and it's unfortunate, is that they ran other candidates, not just Donald Trump against Joe Biden, and those candidates that do even better than Donald Trump does. So this is not showing that Donald Trump is strong. The polling is showing that Joe Biden is weak. And any other Republican would have the same numbers or even better than Donald Trump's right now. I saw Nikki Haley, who's been gaining among Republicans, that her numbers are much better than Trump's in 5 out of these 6 states. So don't look at it that Donald Trump is doing well. Look at it that there's a collapse in the core vote for the President of the United States, and the public, maybe not Congress, and maybe not the party apparatchiks, but the public is saying, thank you, Mr. President, for what you've done. Thank you for winning in 2020. Thank you for your governing, but it's time to go, and it's time to pass the torch to the next generation.
And what if you run a hypothetical Democrat against Donald Trump?
I believe that if it were Cory Booker, I'll use him as an example, or Mitch Landrieu, candidates who won't run against the president, will back him as long as he wants to remain. But if those people were to run, I believe they win. And they could even win substantially. The Republican Party has not had a few good weeks or even a few good months. They're at each other. The anger within the GOP, the split between the MAGA, between the Trump group and the non-Trump group, is palpable. You can feel it, you can measure it in polling, and yet that split is not relevant when it's up against a president who's 81 years old, who would be 86 at the end of his administration, and where the public, where 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds and 40-year-olds say, it's too much, he's too old, it's time for somebody else to come in and do the job.
Only 19% of those polled think he's doing a good or excellent job on the economy. And yet, sitting over here on this side, if you look at the American economy right now, good job numbers, inflation's at a better rate than we're seeing here in Europe. that there are signs as well that growth is healthier than it is here on the European continent. Why does that not translate to the voters? And if it turned before the vote in 2024, might Joe Biden's fortunes change as well?
Well, that's an excellent question, and it helps explain why the Labor Party has such a lead over the Conservatives, because the public hates inflation. The idea that they're working longer hours, they're working for slightly more pay, but they have less at the end of the week. Food is more expensive, fuel is more expensive, healthcare is more expensive, housing is impossible on either side of the Atlantic. And on the American side, they blame this administration for inflation, for at least not taking it seriously. And whereas unemployment affects 5% or 10% of the population, inflation affects every single voter. And the reason why Biden is doing so badly is because people got raises, and yet they have less money at the end of the week to spend on the things that matter to them. And mark my words, with Thanksgiving coming up and Christmas coming up, those numbers are going to deteriorate even further for the president, which is another reason why Democrats should be looking for an alternative as soon as they can.